Forget what the movies told you. Real gunslingers of the Old West carried weapons that could stop a horse in its tracks, punch through adobe walls, or end a fight before it started with one pull of the trigger. These were the guns that made outlaws think twice and lawmen legends. Today, we are counting down the 10 most feared guns of the Wild West. Weapons that shaped history, ended lives, and built reputations from Texas to Tombstone. No myths, no Hollywood tricks, just the truth. So check your powder, keep your eyes on the horizon, and let us start with number 10. Number 10, the Colt Walker 1847. Texas Ranger Captain Samuel Walker wanted a handgun powerful enough to drop a man or a horse with a single shot. Samuel Colt delivered. At 4.5 pounds unloaded with a 9-inch barrel, this massive 6-shooter was the heaviest production revolver ever issued by the American military. It fired .44 caliber lead balls propelled by nearly 60 grains of black powder, almost twice the charge of any other revolver of its time. The muzzle energy exceeded 500 foot-pounds, making it the most powerful black powder handgun ever mass-produced. That record stood for nearly 90 years until the .357 Magnum arrived in 1935. The Walker had problems, though. Cylinders cracked under pressure. The loading lever dropped during recoil and jammed the mechanism. Nearly a third of the 1,000 military pistols were returned to Colt for repairs. Some literally exploded in their owner's hands. Captain Walker himself was killed in battle the same year his revolver was invented, carrying 2 of them into combat during the Mexican-American War. Only 1,100 were ever made. Today, originals sell for over $1 million at auction. The Smithsonian holds one in its collection. The Walker proved that firepower mattered on the frontier, even when reliability came second. Number 9, the Derringer. Sometimes the most feared gun is the one you never see coming. Henry Derringer of Philadelphia built these tiny single-shot pistols starting in 1825, and they became the weapon of choice for gamblers, saloon girls, and anyone who needed lethal force in a vest pocket. Most fired a .41 caliber ball from a barrel barely 2.5 inches long. The whole pistol weighed only 8 ounces. Professional gamblers fired and reloaded daily to prevent misfires. They usually carried 2, sold in matching pairs for $15 to $25. In the Old West, Derringers were called vest pocket pistols, sleeve guns, and boot pistols. They were everywhere violence lurked beneath polite conversation. The most infamous Derringer in history belonged to John Wilkes Booth, who used a Philadelphia Derringer to assassinate President Abraham Lincoln at Ford's Theater on April 14, 1865. The misspelling of Derringer to Derringer actually happened during newspaper coverage of that assassination, and the mistake became the generic term. That particular pistol now sits on display at Ford's Theater in Washington, D.C. The Derringer taught the frontier a hard lesson. Size does not equal danger. Number 8, the double-barrel shotgun, better known as the coach gun. Wells Fargo started arming its stagecoach messengers with these cut-down shotguns in 1858, and the phrase "riding shotgun" was born. With barrels chopped to 18 or 20 inches, these side-by-side 10 and 12 gauge weapons delivered devastating buckshot spreads at short range. You did not need to be a marksman. You just needed to point in the right direction. Doc Holliday carried a 10-gauge coach gun borrowed from Virgil Earp during the gunfight at the OK Corral on October 26, 1881. He shot Tom McClory point-blank in the chest with buckshot. The mortician reportedly could cover the wound with one hand. Wyatt Earp used the same type of weapon to kill Curly Bill Brocius at Iron Springs, a blast so powerful, witnesses said it nearly cut the outlaw in half. The cowboys of Tombstone had a saying, "A pistol means a shootin', a shotgun means a buryin'." Surviving examples from Wells Fargo are held in private collections and museums across the West. The Coach gun was crude, simple, and absolutely terrifying at close range. Number 7. The Smith & Wesson Model 3 Schofield. While the Colt Peacemaker gets all the fame, the Schofield revolver had one trick that made cavalrymen and outlaws love it: speed. Major George Schofield redesigned the Smith & Wesson Model 3 with a top break frame that let the shooter pop open the gun, automatically eject all 6 spent casings, and reload in seconds. The Colt required loading 1 round at a time through a gate. In a fight, that difference could mean everything. The Army adopted the Schofield in 1875, chambered in .45 caliber. About 8,000 were produced before Smith & Wesson discontinued the line in 1877. Jesse James reportedly carried 1. So did Virgil Earp, Pat Garrett, and Buffalo Bill Cody. Wells Fargo bought surplus Schofields after the Spanish-American War, shortened the barrels to 5 inches, and issued them to their agents. The Schofield had one fatal flaw. Smith & Wesson designed it around a shorter cartridge, the .45 Schofield, instead of the standard .45 Colt. The longer Colt rounds would not fit in the Schofield cylinder, creating supply nightmares for the Army. That mistake kept the Colt as the standard military sidearm. Original Schofields, with Wells Fargo markings, are displayed at the NRA National Firearms Museum. The Schofield was the fastest wheel gun on the frontier, but logistics killed its career. Don't forget to leave us a like and hit the subscribe button if you like our video. Thank you. Number 6. The Colt 1860 Army. This .44 caliber 6 shooter bridged the gap between the massive dragoon revolvers and the cartridge guns that followed. Weighing about 2 3/4 pounds with an 8-inch barrel, the 1860 Army offered serious stopping power in a package light enough to carry on a belt. The Union purchased over 127,000 during the Civil War, more than any other handgun. After the war, these revolvers flooded westward. John Wesley Hardin carried 1. So did the James brothers and Sam Bass. Texas Rangers favored them throughout the 1870s. The percussion cap system was eventually obsolete, but gunsmiths converted thousands to fire metallic cartridges, keeping them in service for decades longer. The 1860 Army delivered muzzle velocities between 550 and 1,000 feet per second. At close range, that .44 caliber ball hit with enough force to end most fights instantly. Surviving examples in military configuration are held at the Springfield Armory National Historic Site. The 1860 Army proved that Colt knew how to balance power with practicality. Number 5. The Henry Rifle. Confederate soldiers called it that damned Yankee rifle that they load on Sunday and shoot all week. The Henry held 16 rounds of .44 caliber rimfire ammunition in a tube magazine under the barrel. A trained shooter could fire all 16 in under a minute. Most soldiers of the Civil War era carried single-shot muskets that required reloading after every round. Benjamin Tyler Henry patented his lever-action design in 1860. About 14,000 were produced before the design evolved into the Winchester 1866. The Henry cost $40 to $65, nearly 4 months' pay for a Union soldier, so most who carried one bought it themselves. Entire units pooled their money to arm themselves with Henrys. The Henry played a decisive role at the Battle of Franklin in 1864, where 2 regiments armed with these repeaters helped repulse massive Confederate assaults. At the Battle of the Little Bighorn in 1876, Sioux and Cheyenne warriors armed with Henrys and Winchesters outgunned Custer's men, who carried single-shot carbines. The original Henry used by those warriors can be found in museum collections, including the Buffalo Bill Center of the West. The Henry proved that volume of fire could overcome almost any obstacle. Number 4. The Colt 1851 Navy. Wild Bill Hickok carried a matched pair of these revolvers, ivory-handled, tucked butt forward into his sash. At Springfield, Missouri in 1865, he killed Davis Tutt with a single shot across the town square at roughly 80 yards. That was cap and ball revolver accuracy in the hands of a master. The 1851 Navy fired a .36 caliber ball at about 1,000 feet per second, comparable to a modern .380 pistol. Over 250,000 were produced between 1850 and 1873, making it one of the most successful Colt percussion revolvers ever made. The cylinder was engraved with a scene depicting the Battle of Campeche, where the Texas Navy had fought using early Colt revolvers. Doc Holliday, Buffalo Bill Cody, and countless Texas Rangers carried the 1851 Navy. Its balance made it the most accurate percussion revolver of its era. In 2022, one of Hickok's personal 1851 Navies sold at Rock Island Auction for over $600,000. Original examples remain on display at the Metropolitan Museum of Art. The 1851 Navy was the gentleman's gun of the frontier, deadly in skilled hands. Number 3. The Sharps 1874 Rifle. When buffalo hunters needed to kill from distances that would not spook the herd, they reached for the Sharps. This single-shot falling block rifle was so accurate that the word sharpshooter comes from those who wielded it. Chambered in massive calibers like .45-70 and .50-90, the Sharps could reach targets at 1,000 yards with the right sights and shooter. At the Second Battle of Adobe Walls in 1874, buffalo hunter Billy Dixon knocked a Comanche warrior off his horse at a distance later surveyed by the Army at approximately 1,500 yards, nearly 7/8 of a mile. Dixon always called it a scratch shot, pure luck. But the Sharps made that luck possible. Professional hunters used these rifles to slaughter millions of buffalo across the Great Plains between 1870 and 1884. Heavy barrel models weighed up to 16 pounds and fired bullets that could drop a 2,000-pound bison with a single hit. The Sharps Rifle Manufacturing Company went bankrupt in 1881, but the legend was already made. Original 1874 Sharps rifles are held at the NRA National Firearms Museum and the Autry Museum of the American West. The Sharps was the long arm that shaped the West, one shot at a time. Number 2. The Winchester Model 1873. This lever-action rifle earned the title "The Gun That Won the West," and the marketing was not wrong. Winchester produced over 720,000 of these rifles between 1873 and 1923. Chambered originally in .44-40, the 1873 could fire the same ammunition as the Colt single-action Army, meaning a frontiersman needed only one type of cartridge for both weapons. The lever action allowed rapid follow-up shots, with magazine capacities up to 14 rounds depending on configuration. Cowboys, lawmen, outlaws, and Native American warriors all carried the 1873. Geronimo surrendered with one in his possession. The Texas Rangers and Northwest Mounted Police issued them as standard equipment. Winchester established a special 1 of 1,000 grade for rifles with exceptionally accurate barrels. Only about 136 were ever made, selling for $100 when a standard rifle cost $18. An original 1 of 1,000 1873 Winchester can sell for hundreds of thousands at auction today. The Buffalo Bill Center of the West holds several significant examples. The 1873 Winchester put repeating firepower in the hands of everyone who could afford it. Number 1. The Colt Single Action Army, the Peacemaker. Adopted by the United States Army in 1873, this revolver became the symbol of the American West. Chambered in .45 Colt, the Peacemaker fired a 255-grain bullet at about 900 feet per second, delivering over 400 foot-pounds of energy. That was enough to stop any man walking. Wyatt Earp carried one at the OK Corral. Pat Garrett used one to kill Billy the Kid. General George Patton carried a custom Peacemaker with ivory grips throughout his military career. Over 357,000 were produced during the first generation alone, and Colt still manufactures them today due to continuing demand. The Peacemaker was reliable in dust, mud, and blood. Cowboys trusted it. Outlaws feared it. Lawmen made their reputations with it. Arizona named the Colt Single Action Army its official state firearm in 2011. Original first-generation Peacemakers with military provenance are held at the National Firearms Museum, the Autry Museum, and countless private collections worldwide. Thanks for watching Bullet and Saddle. See you in the next video.